Hey everyone, it's Evangeline here at etrailer. Today we have the Benton Platform Bike Rack. This is going to be the Shifts and Grins in the 2-bike edition. We're going to take a look at how it fits here on our 2023 GMC Terrain. This is going to be a little different compared to other racks where you have some different features you might not be used to. This is all going to be good for versatility though. So here on our GMC Terrain, you'll be able to turn this bike rack into either a frame mount or a wheel mount rack. Also, because this utilizes a button instead of a lever, it's super easy to use the add-on for if you need to carry 4 bikes. And to tilt it away, that's pretty easy too. This is at an accessible height where I could either press that button with my hand, or actually I'm short enough where I just use my knee. I push that button in and then I pull the rack down. And it comes down to a pretty decent tilt angle. If you've had bike racks where you kind of had to like reach in and pull a lever and then you had to dodge out real quick, that's gonna be a lot easier to use. And that way you don't have to worry about anything as you open up your hatch door. Plenty of clearance between the door, our pedals, and our handlebars. We can grab our groceries, our helmets, our backpacks out here. If you're the type of person that likes to switch out their shoes in the trunk of your car, then that's going to be an option for you as well. And taking a look at that clearance again, coming back down. So much space between our door and our bike. To bring this back up into position, it's simply a matter of lifting up on the rack. It snaps into place, and you're now ready to drive. So what types of bikes can you carry with this rack? Well, quick overview is it does have a 55-pound weight capacity, so pretty high up for those heavier electric bikes. I also have this loaded up as a front wheel mount. So we have 1, 2, 3 points of contact being the wheel straps and the mount. Now if you want to, you could also turn this into a frame mount rack. That hook is removable, and then you can adjust that mast over and secure your bike by the frame. Now usually I would secure the front wheel mount just because that is going to be something that makes me more comfortable with keeping the bike secure, but it's nice to have those different options. To remove the bike, I start with these straps though. So press the lever to release the strap, lift that up, and that just pivots out and down so it's out of the way of the spokes. Once your front and your rear straps are disengaged, you can then go over to your bike. I like to hold the bike with one hand as I press this lever to release the hook. Bring that hook all the way down to the ground or to the end of the rack, and then we can then grab our bike, and we're now ready to hit the trails. So it does take pretty simple job of just removing those straps and the hook. I do recommend that if you are not carrying around your bikes, but you do want to keep the rack loaded, for cleanup, I recommend bringing the hook back into the cradle and then using a strap to secure that hook down. That's because these hooks could swing up. So if you want to fold up your rack, then that's going to be how it's best to secure those hooks. Before we fold though, let's talk about clearances. Now on our Terrain, the hitch does sit pretty low to the ground. So let's talk about things like ground clearance as well as the clearance this adds to the back of our car. So from the bumper to the end of the rack, which is going to be the button, that sits at 31 inches of length added, which is pretty normal for a 2-bike platform rack. If you have a small garage or need to park into a tight spot, that's a measurement worth thinking about. The next is going to be ground clearance. So we have it at 15.5 inches here from the end of the rack to the ground, and then where you need to load your cradles or your bikes is going to be 19.5 inches. Compare that to our shank clearance here where our hitch is, which is only 8.5 inches off the ground. So that's going to be a little bit of a shank rise so that your bikes sit higher up off the ground. If you're going over speed bumps or you got a steep driveway, you make sure that you have enough clearance there. This is still on the lower side, but you should be good in most situations. Something worth considering too is it's not that high up to get your bikes up and onto the rack, which could be convenient for your heavier up to 55-pound bikes. Now folding this up to be more compact and portable, remember that button we pressed earlier? We're going to press it again, but this time we're going to lift up against the rack and it snaps into place into the compact position. This is going to be helpful for if you're not carrying your bikes around but you don't want to take up too much space. From the bumper to the end of the rack, this now sits at 16.5 inches, which is pretty big of a difference compared to when it was folded down. Again, helpful for those smaller garages. And with this in place too, we can also talk about how much space it takes up behind the car. This is what it would look like from the back. You can see that our license plates, our backup camera, that's all visible, as well as obviously our lights and our window. But something that's unique to this is because the rack sits so low behind the vehicle, if I needed to open up the hatch, I can. It looks like it comes close, but there's actually about 1.5 inches of space between the cradle and the door. So I can grab things without having to tilt the rack down or remove it, making for a very convenient bike rack. All in all, this bike rack does work great on our Terrain. And if you are a person that is planning on carrying around multiple bikes, more than 2 every now and then, let's say you have kids that might want to go out for a bike ride sometimes, this works extra great when you use the add-on just because of how it works with that add-on, super easy to use. But if you are looking for just a 2-bike platform rack, this is going to be a very practical rack at a very affordable price. However, you do have to keep in mind the different capacities. 55-pound weight capacity might not be enough for those extra heavy electric bikes. Plus you have things like a 3.5-inch tire width capacity and a 48-inch wheelbase. So if you need something that's more specific for those larger, longer, or heavier bikes, we do have options available for you here at eTrailer. One example is going to be if you have a heavy electric bike, check out the Hollywood Racks Destination E, which is designed purely for that type of bike. But for most bikes of different shapes and sizes, as well as a rack that gives you a lot of versatility and is great to add on to, this was a look at the Benton platform bike rack, otherwise called the Shifts and Grins, and you saw it on the 2023 GMC Terrain.